For the Olympics, will Joseph Schooling be ready for Tokyo 2020? It's Monday and you're watching The Big Story, where we'll discuss the top news of today and explain why it matters. I'm Dylan Ang, coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. The biggest pro-democracy protest in months. Hundreds of thousands of demonstrators in Hong Kong turned up on Sunday in a show of the movement's staying power. Protesters flooded the city's major downtown boulevards, singing "Glory to Hong Kong" and chanting 5 demands, not one less. The rally was the first organised by the Civil Human Rights Front to get approval since August. It prompted many Hong Kongers who normally wouldn't risk joining an illegal assembly to hit the streets. The protests were largely peaceful until nighttime, with tensions between riot police and some demonstrators. What a large turnout on the streets, and what does this mean for the continued unrest in Hong Kong? We have Global Affairs correspondent Goh Swee Noi in the studio with her analysis. Hey Swee Noi. Welcome to the show. Now, Swee Noi, first of all, this signals that the unrest will continue well into 2020 next year, and that it's not going to go away anytime soon. Now, what does this mean for Carrie Lam's administration? Well,
Carrie Lam has been facing tremendous pressure over the last 6 months over the extradition bill, and as you rightly say, it is not going to go away anytime soon, and it will not go away because Carrie Lam's government and Beijing have insisted that they would not respond to 4 of the 5 demands that the protesters have made. Now, they have acceded to one of the demands by withdrawing the extradition bill in September. This is the bill that had sparked the protests over the past 6 months, but they have said that they will not be giving in anymore to the protesters. They're not going to give any more concessions. So yeah, we're going to see more protests. Now, one of the protesters' key demands is to have the government set up this commission of inquiry to investigate police brutality, and many Hong Kongers want such an inquiry because they feel that the police have used excessive force on the protesters. And if you looked at the latest survey that took place last month, satisfaction of Hong Kong police is at its lowest at 35.3%. This is against about 63% in May. So you can see that, you know, people are really dissatisfied and really would like to have this commission of inquiry. So next month, early next month, the findings of the police watchdog is going to come out. They have, Carrie Lam's government has asked this watchdog to look at police behavior. So now if this watchdog were to recommend that the commission be set up, this would really be good because it would give Carrie Lam a reason to set up the commission without appearing to give in to the protesters.
Now, Swee Noi, you know, protesters, you know, they have sworn to continue pressuring the government, and I see that they have used a combination of both peaceful as well as not so peaceful means. You know, what are some of your thoughts about that?
Yes, that's right. We have seen that happening, peaceful marches versus violence between the police and protesters. And actually, if we see the peaceful protesters, they say that, you know, whether it is violent, a violent expression or peaceful expression, it is an expression of a view, and they have shown solidarity. Peaceful protesters have shown solidarity with radical protesters by not judging what the radical protesters do, by not overly criticizing them. But as you have noticed, you know, in between the November 24th district council elections, so the week before and the week after, the violence has abated. This is because most Hong Kongers, and this include the radical protesters, they want this democratic process to take place. The government had warned that they would need to postpone the elections if violence were to carry on and make it unsafe to hold this elections. And radical protesters had heed the warning, and they had kept off the streets in the week before and the week after. Now the problem is this, that after the results came out that showed that the Pan-Democrats had won a landslide, right? Carrie Lam, instead of responding to this by acting, she says that, okay, we have seen the results, we realize the dissatisfaction of the people with the current situation, we will listen to the opinions of the people, and we will seriously reflect. But on the other hand, she has not acted. And to a lot of the Pan-Democrats, this is a golden opportunity for her to actually do something without seeming to give in to violence, to the violent protesters. And the huge turnout that we see on Sunday, the huge turnout that you talked about, is the Hong Kongers telling Carrie Lam again, please do something. And the fear is that violence may escalate if the government continues to drag its feet.
Right. Well, thank you, Srinoy, for coming on the show and for sharing more about this. Now, if you'd like to keep up to date with everything that's happening in Hong Kong, you can always visit our website at straitstimes.com. And for our second story in the spotlight, the problem of meth in the region. The Straits Times special on drugs includes stories, videos, and an interactive special on methamphetamine, or meth, to share stories of users and shed light on this drug. Meth has been Southeast Asia's drug of concern in the last decade and has been gaining popularity amongst users in the region since 2001. According to Singapore's Central Narcotics Bureau, the number of meth users here have surpassed 50% of drug users here since 2015. The Meth special explores how meth has become cheaper and more readily accessible in the region, and how labs are smaller and harder to detect than poppy fields. We are joined in the studio by some of the team who put together this special, journalists Tan Mei and Azim Asman. Hey guys.
Hello.
Hey.
Now, Tan Mei, let's start with you. You were one of the reporters who were chasing the stories. How did this drug special come about?
So it came about because Zion and me, we do quite a few drug-related stories. And we've been covering for a while, and there were many questions that we had. And internationally, there was a lot of discussion about things like medical cannabis or the meth boom in Southeast Asia. And I think we wanted to find out what exactly are the answers. So for medical cannabis, there seemed to be so much discussion, like, is it right, is it wrong? And for meth, we keep seeing reports of like larger seizures this year over the last 10 years, you know. So we were wondering, where does it come from? How does it come to Singapore? You know, other than just drug arrests in Singapore, can we trace it back to where the drugs are actually coming from? So that's how we really started with a lot of questions.
Now, Tami, we'll come back to you in a bit. Let's move on to Azim. Now, Azim, you were tasked with capturing this project on video. What was the most difficult part about filming these stories?
Well, for the video part, it's a very complex issue, and there are a lot of moving parts. So to be able to explain all the complex issues involved without glossing over anything important is quite difficult. But with the help of colleagues, Tameh, Zaihan, and some of the interactive colleagues out there, we were able to show how layered this issue is, and how difficult it is to tackle. Yeah.
Right now, Tameh, what were some of the challenges getting this story together? You know, your team had to travel to and about the Golden Triangle, and you know, getting to the underbelly of the drug industry. So, I mean, what was that like?
Okay, so firstly, this package actually took about 8 or 9 months to put together. So what you see today is almost like as long as a baby, you know, like 9 months. So we had to coordinate a lot because we were going to places that we were not familiar with. So we had to try to get contacts there, get locals who were willing to bring us around, and to a certain extent also to make sure that we were protected there, because I mean we hear of all these reports about, you know, shootings, people
being
in
quite
the
a
jungle.
dangerous place.
Yeah, so we wanted to go there, but we wanted to know that there was an element of safety at least, you know. So we had to coordinate that, and you know, we actually even wanted to cross over into Myanmar through the border, but we weighed the pros and cons, and maybe it was something we would do for part 2, so maybe not now. But yeah, it took a bit of effort, a lot of coordination, and making a lot of contacts on the ground. Yeah.
Now, what was one thing that struck you the most when reporting about this? What's something that stood out for you?
So part of the package, we had a profile called Tim. So Tim was actually, in that sense, fresh out of rehab in March when we contacted him. And he was willing to share so much with us. He shared about his experience. He shared about the daily struggle. When he hears just bubbles, when he hears bubbling, he thinks of meth. And I think he really gave us so much insight into a recovering addict's first few weeks or first few months after they have tried to wean off the drug. So that was very touching, because I don't think we expected someone to be so open about his recovering journey, and that was really it's really very courageous of him. So, and another part that we found out in this whole meth trade is that Singapore does quite a good job of keeping it out. We have seizures, we have arrests, but it's actually a very big problem. Internationally, you see drugs that come from Myanmar all the way to Australia. You see them in Singapore, you see them in the US, so it's really a international problem that we were looking at.
Right. What about you, Azim? What struck you the most when trying to tell this story through visuals?
So for us, for me personally, is that every time we go down, there will always be people who are willing and willing to share their stories, even though it's about meth and it's about cannabis. These issues are very contentious and could put them in trouble. So for us, for the meth recovery, Tim, that really impressed me, because he was so brave. And for the illegal cannabis growers, because they're risking their lives to tell their stories to us. And I'm always heartened and quite happy that they're able to share their stories.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, thank you, Azim and Tammy, for coming on the show and sharing with us about this Straits Times special. If you'd like to see the whole package in its entirety, head on down to our website at straitstimes.com. And now let's move on to What's Trending, where Kim will share with us what's buzzing in the internetverse. Over to you, Kim.
Thanks, Dylan. It's time for What's Trending. First up, Hong Kong protest internet memes came to life on Sunday. More than 100 activists were wearing oversized animal masks, including pigs, Shiba Inus, and no one can miss Pepe the Frog. The stunt was the brainchild of Mr. Simon Lau, founder of pro-democracy online radio station Singjai. He said, "In the face of police brutality and tyranny, we want Hong Kong people to carry on with humor, confidence, and positive thinking." Next, street art. BBC News video spotlight on a local graffiti artist called Rozaimi Sabi. He was arrested in 2000 and had his name blacklisted, so he couldn't find a job. But after stumbling into winning a graffiti contest, he now runs his own graffiti shop, Black Book, which brings graffiti artists together and keeps the art alive. Finally, in SEA Games news, Singapore shuttler Loh Kian Yew lost 2-0 to Malaysia in the men's badminton singles finals. He's the first Singaporean man to reach a badminton singles final in 12 years. In 2011, Singapore took the women's singles gold with Fu Mingtian, but the last time the Republic won in the men's singles gold was in 1983. All the best to Team Singapore for the rest of the games. And that's all we have for What's Trending today. If you've seen a story you want to share, link it in the comment section below. Back to you, Dylan.
Thanks, Kim. Now we're at the tail end of the SEA Games, and while Team Singapore has done well with 43 gold medals so far, many eyes were on Joseph Schooling and his pet event, the 100-meter fly. 100-meter butterfly Olympic champion Joe Schooling silenced critics by retaining his title in his pet event and qualifying for the 2020 Olympics. But that was after he was beaten twice last week by his younger teammates. He lost his 50-meter butterfly crown to Tiong Chen Wei, then was stunned by Darren Chua in the 100-meter freestyle. To make things worse, people have been criticizing Schooling's weight gain. He's clearly not in the same shape as his 2016 Olympics form. Will Schooling be ready by then? With us to tell us more live from the SEA Games is Assistant Sports Editor Loh Lin Feng. Hey Lin Feng.
Hi Dylan.
Now Lin Feng, Schooling silenced his critics with his comeback win at the 100-meter fly. What's your assessment of his performance as well as his form?
I think for the 100-meter fly, there were some worries about whether Schooling would be able to defend his gold medal successfully because in the qualifiers on the heats in the morning, it was his teammate Guajuan who was the quickest. So even when he got off the blocks in the final, when Zheng was the quickest off the blocks, and then he led for the first 50 meters of the race as well, but Schooling caught back in the last 50 meters. So he really proved that he was in good shape for that particular event. And he put in an 8 qualifying time as well, which means he's off to the 2020 Olympics.
Right. Now, Lin Feng, I have to bring this up, but Schooling was beaten twice actually by his younger teammates. What do you think happened there?
He was, I think, still a little bit surprised after losing that 50-meter fly as well as the 100-meter freestyle, both events which he won in 2017. So, but he did say after the races that he credited his teammates for their hard work and for beating him. But he said that it is a good reality check for him. He needs to go back to the drawing board and see what went wrong, and also to work on being trimmer and fitter for the Olympics.
Right. Now, besides his fantastic win at his pet event, of course, people are obsessed with how he looks, specifically, his shape and as well as his weight gain. Now, he's considerably chunkier than he was back in the 2016 Olympic Games, and now he says he vows to fix it. Now, what are your thoughts about this?
We actually did talk to his the National Training Center head coach Gary Tan a couple of days ago to ask him about Schooling looking a bit heftier than he was 2 years ago. So Tan said that, Gary actually said that it's there's some lifestyle change that need to be made, but in the next 7 months we'll work on making him trimmer and fitter Schooling that we saw in 2016. So Joseph was asked about this yesterday as well, and he said he's been trying to, since the World Championships in 2017, trying to put on more bulk and weight because he felt he wasn't as strong and he felt weak during the World Champs. So, but that clearly hasn't worked here. So he needs to be a lean, about 78 to 80 kg, to be at his best, and it's something he's going to work with a nutritionist on.
Right. Now, Lin Feng, on a final note, do you think that Schooling will be ready for the Olympics next year? And, will this be a wake-up call of sorts?
Well, he's already said that it is a wake-up call. So it's tough to say what's going to happen in 7 months. Like he has, like his coaches say, a very long and painful slog ahead of him, hard work, nutrition, making sure he gets enough sleep, eating well, putting the best training in the next 7 months. They're really counting down to the days here. So it's really hard to tell. I think he's a very determined swimmer and a very passionate in the pool, and he's a huge fighter. So I wouldn't rule him out, but it will be interesting to see what happens in Tokyo.
Right. Well, thanks, Lin Feng, for sharing more about this. And of course, if you'd like to read more, you can visit our website and keep up to date with Team Singapore at the SEA Games. There you have it, the top stories for today. For more news and videos, do head on down to our website, straitstimes.com. And once again, I'm Dylan. Join us tomorrow for more stories on A Big Story.